Dear students, in this video we will discuss the second story that is given in the same chapter, two stories about flying. Already we have studied the first story, that is his first flight, and this story's name is The Black Aeroplane, and it is written by an English writer, Frederick Forsyth, from United Kingdom. So we will look into the explanation of this story. Please look into your textbook. The moon was coming up in the east behind me, and stars were shining in the clear sky above me. There wasn't a cloud in the sky. So a pilot was flying his aeroplane, and it was a clear sky, and he could see clearly behind him, at the east side, the shining moon, and above him he could see from his cockpit the shining stars. I was happy to be alone high up above the sleeping countryside. So he was very happy because the sky was so clear and he could very easily fly his aeroplane, and he was passing over a countryside. So countryside means a village side. I was flying my old Dakota aeroplane over France back to England. So the name of the aeroplane that he was flying was Dakota, and he was on the way to England. He was coming from France. I was dreaming of my holiday and looking forward to being with my family. So after this landing, he is going to his house for enjoying his holiday, and he was so happy to join with his family. I looked at my watch, 1:30 in the morning. So he looked at the watch and it was showing around 1:30 in the morning. I should call Paris control soon, I thought. As I looked down past the nose of the aeroplane, I saw the lights of a big city in front of me. So uh, he thought of calling up Paris control room, because he is reaching very soon to that Paris. So to inform that his flight is approaching and he may get a proper direction for going to England. So, and also he could see from his cockpit, through the nose of his aeroplane, the city's view, Paris view he could see. I switched on the radio and said, Paris Control, Dakota DS 088 here. Can you hear me? I am on my way to England. Over. So how these people, they talked through the radio. He started talking and he informed that his flight DS 088 is approaching, and can you hear, and like that he just informed to the Paris control room. The voice from the radio answered me immediately. DS 088, I can hear you. You ought to turn 12 degrees west now. DS 088, over. So immediately he got the reply from the control room, and it was something like this, telling the name of his aeroplane or the number of his aeroplane, and they informed they can hear, and also a direction was given to him that he's supposed to change a little direction around 12 degrees west side, and they said over. That means the message is over. So three paragraphs are over. Hope you understood clearly. Once again I will tell. A pilot was flying his aeroplane. He was coming from France to England, and he was so happy because the sky was so clear, and he was extremely happy because after this flying he is going home and he can join with his family for the holiday. And as he was thinking about the holidays and being with the family, and he looked at the watch, it was around 1:30 in the morning. So he looked down and he could see the city approaching Paris. So he thought of connecting with the control room, Paris control, and he just informed through the radio that his flight is reaching there, and give him direction, and he got the reply that he can turn a little bit 12 degrees west like that he got the information. Hope you understood that much. Read up to there and we will continue. Look at the next paragraph. I checked the map and the compass, switched over to my second and last fuel tank. I turned the Dakota 12 degrees west towards England. So he checked his map and compass and all that, the instrument that help him to go in proper direction. And he switched over to the second and the last fuel tank that he is having. So no, some of the flight will have many fuel tanks, and he is having the second one, and that is the last one. That means total this flight has got only two fuel tanks, and turned the Dakota 12 degrees west towards England. So he turned the aircraft 12 degrees as he got in direction from the control room, and it is going to England. I'll be in time for breakfast, I thought. A good big English breakfast. Everything was going well. It was an easy flight. So he was just thinking that uh, I'll be able to reach my home at the time of breakfast, and I can have my breakfast with my family, a big English breakfast. Maybe English people may have a sumptuous breakfast with so many dishes and all. So you can check in the net what are the breakfast that English people take. So anyway, he's telling that he's going to have a big English breakfast, and everything was going well. It was an easy flight. So up to now everything was going well with him, and he felt this is a happy journey and without any trouble, and also he was so happy that he could safely reach his home and he can join with his family for the breakfast. Paris was about 150 kilometers behind me when I saw the clouds, storm clouds. They were huge. They looked like black mountains standing in front of me across the sky. But all of a sudden there was some difference in the sky. So Paris was about 150 kilometers behind him. That means from Paris almost he traveled 150 kilometers ahead. At that time he saw a big cloud in front of him, a storm cloud. So storm also was there. Storm means a very fast furious wind also was there, along with a cloud. It was there in front of him. They were huge. They were so big in size. They looked like black mountains standing in front of me across the sky. So he felt as if in front of him a big mountain is remaining. So the cloud was so huge in size, and it was so black and stormy. I knew I could not fly up and over them, and I did not have enough fuel to fly around them to the north or south. So he understood that he cannot raise his aeroplane above that mountain like cloud, because that much fuel he was not having in the second tank that already he switched over, and also he cannot go around that cloud also. So that was also not possible because that much fuel he was not having. So that was a situation, a difficult situation. So I ought to go back to Paris, I thought, but I wanted to get home. I wanted that breakfast. So if he wanted, he could go back to Paris safely, but he was thinking about going to his home and joining with the family for the breakfast. That was a great desire for him, and that desire did not allow him to turn the aeroplane and go back to Paris. I will take the risk, I thought, and flew that old Dakota straight into the storm. So he took a risk. So he went forward and straight into that storm without no any doubt, because his desire for reaching home was so strong, and he did not think anything about his safety or something, but with a self-confidence and determination he took that old aeroplane Dakota through that stormy cloud. Inside the clouds, everything was suddenly black, and once he entered into the what is called this black cloud, everything seems to be black. It was impossible to see anything outside the aeroplane. So from the cockpit, he was not able to see anything outside. The visibility was so poor. The old aeroplane jumped and twisted in the air. So the aeroplane started twisting and jumping in the air. If you have traveled in aeroplane, you must have experienced sometime the aeroplane move through the cloud, then there will be little jerking, little movement will be there. So but here it was so dark, thick cloud was there, so that impact was uh, there. No, the aeroplane was twisting and it was jumping and all. I looked at the compass. I couldn't believe my eyes. The compass was turning round and round and round. It was dead. It would not work. The other instruments were suddenly dead too. I tried the radio. Paris control, can you hear me? There was no answer. The radio was dead too. So he checked the instruments like compass and radio and so on, but the compass was not showing any direction. It was just moving round and round. Then he understood the compass already dead, and then he tried to connect with the control room, and he uh, started talking through the radio, but there was no signal, and he understood the radio system also is not working. He is not able to connect with the control room, so he was in trouble. I had no radio, no compass, and I could not see where I was. So that was the situation. He was not having any instrument to go forward, and also the visibility was also so poor. I was lost in the storm, and he was completely lost in that cloudy storm. Then, in the black clouds, quite near me, I saw another aeroplane. Then suddenly he saw something. So there was another aeroplane. It just appeared just in front of his aeroplane. It had no lights on its wings, but I could see it flying next to me through the storm. I could see the pilot's face turned towards me. I was very glad to see another person. He lifted one hand and waved. So he saw clearly the pilot sitting in that another aeroplane, and it was just flying beside him, and the pilot turned his face and looked at him. This and all, everything he could see clearly. He was so glad to see another person, at least a little company. He was all alone there, but now another person also is there, though he is in another aeroplane, but at least someone is there nearby. And he saw something that that pilot from the aeroplane which came near to him lifted his hand and waved. Follow me, he was saying, follow me. He knows that I am lost, I thought. He is trying to help me. So he was waving his hand, and our pilot understood that he is telling to him to follow him. And maybe that pilot must have understood that he was lost, so he is trying to help. That was the feeling of our Dakota pilot. He turned his aeroplane slowly to the north in front of my Dakota so that it would be easier for me to follow him. I was very happy to go behind the strange aeroplane like an obedient child. So that aeroplane which came near to him went forward and turned north side just in front of this Dakota, as if showing the way for Dakota. And our pilot was so happy, and he just followed that aeroplane which was moving in front of him, just like an obedient child following the parents or elders. Like that, he was just following that aeroplane. After half an hour, the strange black aeroplane was still there in front of me in the clouds. So like that, around a half an hour went on, and still he could see clearly the aeroplane, the strange aeroplane in front of him in the cloud. Now there was only enough fuel in the old Dakota's last tank to fly for 5 or 10 minutes more. Then another thing that he noticed, that his old Dakota aeroplane could fly only some 5 minutes or 10 minutes, that much fuel only left in the tank. I was starting to feel frightened again. Again, the fear came to him. What will happen if the fuel will be over? Then it will be a very difficult situation. But then he started to go down, and I followed through the storm. Then he saw the flight which was moving in front of him started moving downward, and he just followed that aeroplane. Suddenly I came out of the clouds and saw two long straight lines of lights in front of me. It was a runway, an airport. I was safe. I turned to look for my friend in the black aeroplane, but the sky was empty. So suddenly he saw two straight lines, and he understood it is a runway, and it is time for landing the aeroplane. And he understood he has reached to a airport, and now he is safe. And he turned his head and started looking for the aeroplane which was helping him or leading him, but there was no other aeroplane in front of him or anywhere, and the sky was completely empty. There was nothing there. The black aeroplane was gone. I could not see it anywhere, and the sky was empty, and there was no other aeroplane, and he could not see that aeroplane anywhere there. I landed and was not sorry to walk away from the old Dakota near the control tower. I went and asked a woman in the control center where I was, and who the other pilot was. I wanted to say thank you. So then he just went to the control tower, and he wanted to inquire there which was the aeroplane that was flying in front of him and which helped him to land there safely. He wanted to thank that pilot who was flying that aeroplane. So he went and asked in the control room. There was a woman there for helping. She looked at me very strangely and then laughed. Then the woman who was there in the control room just looked at him in a strange way and started laughing. Another aeroplane, up there in the storm. No other aeroplanes were flying tonight. Yours was the only one I could see on the radar. So it was a surprise for her, because uh, in her radar only single aeroplane was there in that what is called a stormy day. That was this old Dakota. There was no other flight was showing in the radar, and surprisingly, she asked another aeroplane where there was no another aeroplane this stormy day. Only your aeroplane was there, and so who helped me to arrive there safely without a compass or radio, and without any more fuel in my tanks? Who was the pilot on the strange black aeroplane flying in the storm without lights? So many questions were coming into the mind of this pilot, like who was that person who helped me flying that what is called aeroplane, strange aeroplane, and who helped me to reach here without the help of this compass, radio, and very less fuel in the tank, and where that strange black aeroplane has gone. And uh, so many questions were coming into the mind of this pilot, and there ends the story. What is your feel? Who must have been that pilot? According to me, there was no pilot, there was no aeroplane. It was his determination, it was his desire, that strong desire to reach my home, that helped him to reach safely to that airport. So, my dear students, in the beginning of this chapter, I said these two stories are talking about self confidence and desire, which are two important components for achieving our goal or reaching to our destination. So, these two stories are giving the same message. First, we have seen his first flight. A small seagull was not able to fly because he was lacking confidence, but the mother played an important role, and he could realize his ability, and he could finally make his first flight. So in this story, Black Aeroplane, the pilot of that old Dakota, he was having a determination, a strong desire to reach his home, and that helped him to overcome the obstacles and struggles that came on his way flying back to England. So I don't think there was any other pilot was there or any other aeroplane came. It was only his feeling, that confidence or that determination that was there very strong in his mind, and that led him to reach safely to that airport or his destination. So now we will see some important question answers, and that you can write it down, and I hope you understood clearly the story. uh, in one stretch I completed this story because it is so easy to understand it. So please read again and again so that you may get the meaning so clearly, and please write down the question answers so that if any question comes for the exam you could write well. So thank you. We will meet in next video with a new chapter.